Hi, Sheila Fung here. I'm the Director of Member Programming with Uvaro. Thank you again for attending our webinar last week. I know Greg just shared a quick 5-minute recap, but now we're going to spend some time putting it into practice when it comes to building programs. With long-tail program design, consider that there are critical skills and also not so critical skills. Just because we're not identifying them as not so critical doesn't mean that they're not important. And more importantly, the order of what's defined as critical and not critical is in a state of constant evolution and change. Just because it's not critical today doesn't mean it won't be critical tomorrow. Let's use the use of AI in sales as an example. A year ago, not many sales reps were using AI in order to run their processes. It was not common. A few months back, it was starting to become a niche skill set that some reps would use to help stand out in selection processes, using tools to do things faster at a greater scale. Now, it's become common practice. In fact, if you don't have this skill set within your toolkit as a seller, you can find yourself filtered out of application processes. So, our job as program designers is to figure out how we're going to teach for this skill. Not just the mechanism of delivery, what it's going to look like, but how we're going to teach at the depth that we need while considering in the wide range of needs our audience might have. Long tail program design allows us to factor all of this in. Let's go back to our example of the use of AI in sales as the technical skill that we're trying to teach. We can't just start there. That would be too simple. Starting there ignores the skill set that our learners may or may not have in order to adopt the technical skill. We need to consider the durable or soft skills that our learners need in order to properly assess if what they're producing with the technical skill set is usable. But also, do they have the digital skills we need them to in order to properly adopt the tools we're teaching them to use? To recap, we need to have a solid foundation of durable skills as well as the digital skills needed to adopt the technical skill that we're trying to teach. For this example, the durable skills we're speaking about are communication foundations, the how of communication, which tools, which channels, norms associated with each of those. The simple digital skill that we're talking about in this case is prompt engineering. It takes communication foundations to the next level and applies it in the context of AI tools. So now that we understand the types of skills that we're teaching, we have to consider the last part of the equation, our audience. Audience changes everything. For example, consider the difference between teaching the same material to an audience of youth learners versus to an audience of mid-career switchers versus to an audience of newcomers to Canada. Effective program design should meet learners where they're at. Let's take a look at a quick example. Still thinking about that technical skill of the use of AI in sales. For this example, let's say that our audience is a group of mid-career changers moving into the tech industry. For this group, Communication Foundations is going to start with a workshop series to introduce them to what the landscape looks like and highlight the differences between industries they're coming from compared to the industry that they're moving into. In order to give them opportunity to apply this learning, we're going to direct them towards a course module, very focused on actually practicing outreach, seeing what's going on in the space, and critiquing materials that are there, applying what they learned in the first workshop series. Finally, we move them to a place where they're creating their own materials. It's a combination of one-to-one coaching, live call practice, gets a little bit more hands-on from here. Once our learners have made it through Communication Foundations, we're going to turn our attention towards the digital skill that we need them to acquire. In this case, it's prompt engineering, teaching them how to interact with AI-based tools using the communication foundations that they've just learned. It starts with the basics of prompt engineering. In this case, again, taught through the delivery mechanism of workshops, introducing them to the foundational concepts. Then they have the opportunity to apply these concepts in our course modules through a series of projects and assignments. In this case, because the digital skill is so quickly evolving and interesting to learners, we've been using for our mechanism of delivery our weekly office hours workshops. It's where members from all different courses can come and connect, share what they're doing with AI prompting, and then improve upon it together. It's actually turned into a co-creation of the direction that we take this material. It's highly relevant to all of the learners in the room of how they can create using AI. Now that we know our learners have the durable and digital skill sets that we need them to, we can pivot into focusing on the technical skill we're trying to teach. In this case, using a very similar delivery mechanism, introducing foundational concepts in workshops, and then in our classrooms, not just project and assignment work, but bringing in industry leaders and employers in order to share what they're doing with their teams. Finally, using those office hour workshops to provide opportunity for learners to practice, iterate, and co create. Now let's use an example that's wildly different from the one we just ran through. This is actually based on a proposal we currently have in flight. Imagine we're teaching the same technical skill, the use of AI in sales, but we're teaching it to an audience of youth who are identified as furthest from employment. We know that the three buckets will still remain the same: soft, durable skills, digital skills, leading up to the technical skill set. But how we teach this has to change drastically. This group of learner isn't bringing years of career experience to the table. It's completely different from what the mid career switchers moving into the tech industry brought to theirs. We know for this audience that the skills buckets might remain the same, but the how of delivery and what it means to meet our learners where they're at is drastically different. Some of this training makes most sense to contract out for specialists who are best equipped to serve these audiences for the delivery side of things, working in tandem with our team for overall program design and structure. For this audience, the way we teach prompt engineering and AI for sales in terms of mechanism might look quite the same as it did for our last audience. The biggest difference is what would have to happen before we could get our learners to that point. Let's revisit what the idea of communication foundations means for this audience. Rather than starting communications foundations with a base of work experience, this group of learners is coming at it from a completely different starting point. In this case, it's not as simple as recontextualizing professional experience from other industries into a new industry. It means starting from the ground up with regards to what it means to communicate in a workplace setting. So think along the lines of professionalism, business acumen, how to write an email for work, accessing tools that are available to help with all of these things. These are just a few examples of the type of communication skills that this audience would need to learn without prior work experience to draw from. And for youth furthest from employment, we have to also consider life and learning barriers that can impact training. But the benefit of long tail program design is that it allows us to identify the critical skills of today and tomorrow, to control the depth of teaching for workforce impact, and to empower our learners to find career success regardless of the audience we're teaching to. So, this is how we're thinking about long tail program design. If you'd like to learn more, please revisit the recording of our webinar from last week, or if you'd like to continue the conversation, you can get in touch with our partnerships team. Thanks so much for watching. Talk soon.